Welcome back to CTN. I'm Robert Van Slip. In the last two episodes, I made use of playgrounds. In this episode, I'm going to talk about what a playground actually is. Let's actually go and create one. You have three possible platforms: iOS, tvOS, and macOS. Now, you may notice that watchOS is missing, at least in Xcode 10. I'm going to start with macOS. I want to call this just Mac. And where do I want to put it? Well, excuse me. Development temp, that's a good place. So what I have here is obviously just the import of the Cocoa environment and a variable just called string. Now what this is, it's an edit window that sits on top of runtime environment. The runtime environment is a code interpreter. In other words, it's executing lines of code. It's not actually doing a compile and link and creation of a binary. It's also running on top of a simulator. It's running the Cocoa environment. Now, given that this were running on a Mac and it is the target environment, it's somewhat of a more efficient simulator than it would be if we picked iOS. So the reason you would choose this, even if you're really focused on iOS, is that it's the most efficient place to do code experimentation because it runs faster. Now let's actually go to the change bar here and execute this. Now there's the result pane over here just indicates the result. There was a variable below playground. I'm going to print that. Now you notice nothing happened. That line has not been run yet. That one has. I'm going to run this. Okay, down on the debug pane there was the output. Now I'm going to cheat a little bit here. I'm going to paste some code in that I had pulled out of a text edit file. Now I'm going to run this in stages. I'm going to say, okay, let's go here. So what do I have? I have an array which starts out, let's move this over, which starts out with an unordered array with duplicates in it, and I've told the array to sort. So I end up with a sorted array. Now, if I want to eliminate duplicates, in other words, I want to create a set from that array, and I want to sort the result of that. So what I'll do is I'll execute to here. Well, what I have is the set. It's eliminated the duplicate. Let's talk about dictionaries. I have a dictionary, and it's initialized to have Sue and her age, Bob and his age, and Paul and his age. Now what I want to do from that dictionary is I want to extract its keys. In other words, what were the keys in this dictionary? Well, we go here, we run. Well, the keys in the dictionary were Bob, Sue, and Paul. Let's say I want to take those keys and I want to sort them. Well, go here. Bob, Paul, and Sue. Alphabetical order. Now, if I want to actually do some printout, I actually want to loop through names, which are in the keys, and I actually want to print some information. Well, we can go here. It's ran 3 times, not overly interesting, but you'll see that the output is actually at the bottom in the debug pane. Now you'll notice this is the code that's been executed, and this is the code that hasn't been executed. If I want to create a 2D array, and I'll be using this in the future. In fact, actually in the future I'm going to be using basically sets and dictionaries and this array, particularly for the next problem. I'm going to create a two-dimensional array initialized to zeros. It's an 8 by 8. Actually represents a chessboard, or the start of a chessboard. This over here is not all that interesting, but if I click on this item here, this button, it's an 8 by 8 array with all zeros. Now let's end with a range issue. I really want to go backwards. I want to do a for I from 7 to 0. Swift won't allow that. The left-hand item has to be smaller than the right-hand item. However, it does work to go from -7 to 0. And to use that, I can simply do the negative of it. Let's run that. So we go down here. What do we got? 765432110. Exactly what I wanted. So the value here is actually playing with Swift concepts. Going back to your project and actually doing the coding, and you're not actually trying out concepts in the project, simple concepts, and then going through the build process and then finding out you got it wrong and so on and so forth. Let's go to the next slide. I went ahead and created an iOS single view playground. And as a result, you get a view controller as provided for free. It contains a view with label in it, which just simply says hello world. When this is run, this is the output you see. Now, this view controller, you can't really do much with it because you can't have outlets or actions. There's no library. All you can really do is manipulate views. All right. Now, if you notice down on the bottom, it sets live view, playground page current live view, equal to my view controller. Now, if you take a look at what I did previously in the inverted triangles, I created a blank, just a blank iOS playground. I created my own custom view, which then I did an override on the drawer routine for the core graphics. But this is where things get interesting. Down on the bottom, instead of setting live view equal to a view controller, I'm setting it equal to a custom view, which is actually a UI view. Now, you may ask, well, why does that work? The reason being is if you dig into the documentation for the live view, you'll find that as long as the thing you're attaching conforms to Playground Live Viewable, it's fine. And it turns out UI View and UI View Controller both do. So what are the bottom line with this obscurity? Well, in my opinion, I see no value in creating a single view playground. You can create a blank view, and you can create a custom view. You can, or multiples, you can embed one in the other. And you can attach the root view to live view. Also, playgrounds are useful for basic code exploration. That's probably the greatest value. But when you do that, you should choose a Mac OS playground, blank Mac OS playground, because you're not paying as high of a real-time cost for the simulator. Because when you do load a iOS playground, simulator has to be started and it sits there and spins for a while. Anyway, a little bit different of an episode. That's it. Let's go to the photo. Thanks for watching.